Hey everyone, James here from the beach house, just taking a bit of a week to work on a few projects and work a few ideas that I've got going on. Also, one of my mental health things that I do is to try and work on a model. This is the Focke-Wulf 190E, I believe it is. No, F8. Anyone who's a flying enthusiast is just the one that I picked out. It's got the paint codes and everything like that. It turns out it was probably a little bit more advanced than I'd be used to just to do a model. Now, I'm not a real model guy, but I picked this one out, and I need a drill, and you need a lot of things. You need knives and all sorts of stuff, more stuff than I thought that I would probably do. Probably a lesson here about going into things underprepared, under-equipped. I think that I see that a lot of people go into the markets, not just to turn it around to my actual job. A lot of people go into markets unprepared, unequipped, not knowing exactly what they're going into. That's why you should always make sure that you seek advice for everything that you do at all times. However, look, this is coming along. I set aside myself about half an hour every afternoon. I'm trying to catch the sunset here, and I just get that. Now, what we've got going on in markets, fascinating stuff. I can't even remember what it was that I was going to talk about. 39% of Americans have skipped buying food in order to make their mortgage repayments. Now, a lot of people have seen that as being a bad sign. Myself, I see that as sort of being, well, it's not a good sign, but it's definitely something that sort of reiterates what I've always been saying, that people will do whatever they can to be able to pay their mortgage. You cut everything out. It sort of it screams something at me, saying that people will not eat. Literally, people will not eat to be able to make their mortgage payments. So whenever you're talking about a calamity, you're talking about a recession, you're talking about pullbacks. People think, oh, well, housing is going to collapse. People won't pay their mortgage. There's going to be a collapse. And it's like, no, actually, you'll find that a very small amount of people will actually avoid paying their mortgage. What you're going to get is a lot of people who will avoid paying for other stuff to pay their mortgage. That's the key difference. Now, I'd really rather we lived in a world where people didn't have to skip eating or feeding their family. But look, it's not my job to worry about that. Maybe it is. Okay. So, look, what's next up here? The VIX, the volatility index, is trading really crazy low. That is a thing that I wanted to have a look at this year. Last year, remember that simple rule. If you bought when the VIX is high and sold when it was low, you're going to do okay last year. This year, it's not, well, I mean, it's only going to be as good as when you look back on it. But however, this year, if you look at it, I mean, interesting, the VIX is really, really low, like going crazy, complacent low. And with all of the things that we still have on the horizon, with the things that can still shock the system potentially, I think that VIX is trading a little bit low. And I was just thinking about, there was a JP Morgan survey that went out and asked participants in the market, are you willing to increase your exposure to the market over the coming days? It's about 25% said yes. Take, for example, this time last year, it was anywhere between 50 and 60% was saying yes. I think that there's a lot of hesitance to put anything more into the market. I think that volatility is too low. Just historically speaking, that when it's this low, you probably want to ease back onto positions in there. Also keep in mind that historically, the Fed pausing is bullish. The Fed cutting is the bearish side of things. We are now moving into potentially one more raise in May for the Fed, and then they're going to be looking at holding. Great. We've already had that rally sort of factored in potentially. After that, well, it's going to be cutting, and that's potentially a bearish signal that's there. But that being said, always make sure you've got something in the market. And this is sort of where I'm like, I'm not we're out, we're in, we're out, we're in. We tweak on the edges. We sort of go overweight, and then we pull it back and go underweight. Right now, I'm looking at going underweight, pulling it back out of the market, but staying involved. Why? Because we've had some amazing chart that I've sort of put on my note, and I'll put it in my newsletter that's there, that on average we've had since 1980, on average there's been an average of 14%. There has been an average 14% drop every year. This year so far we've had an 8% drop. Last year was 20-something. Last year was an anomaly. But the market, and this is the S&P 500, is up 32 out of 43 times since 1980. So really, if you stay in the market, you're probably going to go up. However, you've got to try and just ease back when one of those big drops is about to appear. I don't think it's a big drop that's about to appear. However, I think that we're probably just going to calm down a little bit, cool it off, add something back into the market and sort of relax. I'm still playing that 60-40 game where I'm going overweight bonds, overweight equities, just sort of swimming through like a fish, and I'll be able to navigate this channel, and we have been navigating it quite successfully. Talking about energy, Germany switched off their last reactor on the weekend. Very funny. Two things that happened going into that. First off, E.ON, huge energy provider over in Germany, they announced a few hours before it was being switched off, they announced there was going to be a 45% price increase starting on the 1st of June. Wonder why? And also the other one that came up is after they switched off that power plant. The biggest source of energy, of power, was coal in Germany, and just a phenomenal amount. It was incredible. Now, going on from that tangent, that how are we going to move this energy transition that Germany is half done and not done the entire way through? How are we going to move this energy transition? I can't reiterate enough. Copper, lithium, graphite, all of these things are going to happen. If you want to play, the easiest way to do it is through copper. You can't play, look, if you want to play the coal, that's great. But if you want to actually have something that's long-term as part of the transition, because eventually Germany has to come up and do the rest of the transition, that's just how that goes. But copper absolutely has to be. So between now and 2030, to be able to complete this energy transition, we're going to need about 2 times as much copper. I've talked about this 1,000 times more. But some of the other things like lithium and graphite, we're going to need like 18 times as much dug out of the ground. That physically is not possible to do. So there is this huge lag that's coming up in that space, and will continue to be in that space. If you want to know more about some of the really specific ideas that we've got that we can access you to via the Australian Mutual Funds Exchange, please let me know, because we actually have access for you to be able to take advantage of these ideas. Anyway, have yourself a good one, and stay safe.